This is about allowing yourself to get to a calmer, more focused state so that you can inherently boost productivity because of what you have adopted in your life. If you are knee deep in the chaos and the noise right now, or you're just trying to kind of rewire your life in a way that adds more focus, more ease, more calm, more intention, I think that you're going to find a lot of these strategies are going to be really beneficial for you in just quieting the noise around you and focus to gain that unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Mindful Malibu Morning. Join me in conversations that empower and inspire as we connect with nature and nurture our mental health and wellness, living more purposeful and intentional lives. Each episode will dive into personal motivation, self-discovery, self-care, and of course, wellness. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome for the very first time. This episode I originally recorded was titled How to Boost Productivity and Avoid Burnout. In light of everything going on in Los Angeles right now, with all of the fires and the dislocation and just the healing that is happening right now. And regardless if you're in Los Angeles or if you're watching it on the news or if you're dealing with something in your own life, or if you feel like there's a lot of chaotic energy around you, and yet we still are required to perform our day-to-day. If you have kids, you must show up for your kids. And you're responsible for making sure that they get to school regardless of, kind of what's going on around. And you are responsible for making sure that they are well and healthy and, doing the mundane stuff like making dentist appointments for yourself and your family. And you're probably also responsible for your salary, your career, your friends, all these odds and ends that are required from us from life. When you're living in a state of instability, it can be again, difficult to wake up and kind of know how to assess and prioritize your day. I also know how difficult it is to ask for help. And when you just say yes and you allow someone to step in, the amount of ease and the amount of support that you feel just washes over you. So I encourage you as you listen to this episode to also think about ways where you can ask for help in your life. That could be something very small. If you have insurance papers to fill out, if you have laundry to do and someone can help watch your child for just an hour, ask them. If someone wants to watch your pest so you can make a priority list and kind of get centered as to what you have to do next, then that's what you can do. I encourage you to look for ways where you can ask for help and look for ways where you can let go of things that maybe you don't need to do right now, all in the best interest of you, your family, and navigating whatever you're handling right now in life. So the initial episode, again, how to boost productivity and avoid burnout, it just felt a little surfacey, and I kept going back to the reason why I wanted to start this podcast. And this podcast is a place for inspiration and helping you to live your life in the deepest, most authentic way possible. So yes, there are tactics and tools and things that we can implement, but this isn't just about finding a new strategy. This is about allowing yourself to get to a calmer, more focused state so that you can inherently boost productivity because of what you have adopted in your life. So we are going to talk about the ways you can focus and gain more momentum in your days. And we're doing it again just for this reason of, life requires us to show up and it can be difficult in certain times. So how do we let go of things no longer serving us? How do we assess what tasks we need to complete and let go of the ones that maybe are smaller and can be pushed back a little bit? And then how do we know when our ego is telling us to say yes, when we can perhaps in a situation say no? So for now, as always, it is my intention that this information is used and received for the utmost highest good. May we find peace and healing in our surroundings. May we look for beauty. May we use our breath even when we find breathing is too hard. May we pause, even one moment in our day, and notice good around us. I invite you to join me right now. I'm staring at 3 giant trees. They go and their leaves are starting to green and the sun is highlighting the plants that we just planted with our strawberries and the newness of what's to come. And Those strawberry plants that are below the trees are a great reminder that you can always start something new. And with a little water, a little grounding, a little time, what starts out as just a small seed, a small plant begins to grow and it begins to fruit. And just like those strawberry plants, there is a lot that you can do with simple nourishment. So take a nice inhale, just fill your body up with that beautiful air and hold at the top. I invite you to clench your fists and breathe in and let it go. And just notice your breathing. Notice how you feel, if there's any tension in your body, if your jaw is tight, if your neck is tight, if you're crossing your legs or clenching your hands and not really meaning to. And just loosen up one piece of your body, whether that's, your shoulders, or move your head back side to side. And just allow that breath to be a reminder that at any point in the day, if you feel, you're getting a bit overwhelmed, or you're in a conversation you don't want to be a part of, or you receive something that isn't what you want, or you just need a moment, you can always come back to your breath and just be reminded, like the strawberry plants, it's the very simple, the watering, the resting, the nutrients in our soil that allow us to flourish, allow us to fruit, allow us to thrive. So as the sun is rising through the trees, as the sun is implanting itself into the nutrients of our soil, of our strawberry plants, I invite you to take a nice inhale and smile and exhale. May the information we receive be set in good. May it be positive. May it nourish our bodies and our minds and our souls as we move forward and receive this information for our day. Let's get started. Today, we're talking about strategically focusing your time and attention to avoid burnout and, of course, boost productivity. I'm going to share techniques that have worked for me and a book that really helped me gain perspective. At the time, I didn't think that I would be using it so much. Fast forward a number of years later, and I'm pulling out those techniques and how I approach my tasks in general and get through my day a little bit more systematically, so that you can just enjoy and get through the stuff that you have to do without going crazy. In 2018 or maybe 2017, I read the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. The One Thing, this was a book. I was working as a young counselor, and I was traveling a lot for work, and found that a lot of my work responsibilities and the programs that I were planning just were a lot on my plate. And I saw this title and I gravitated towards it. I encourage you to go read the book and check it out. But the general ideas were that if you did less things with more focus, you would gain better results. So in the book, it talks about the domino effect. So this is small focused actions that can lead to larger results and success. So the idea is that, we have a lot of things going on, but how do we kind of focus and get more accomplished and start gaining momentum? That's that domino effect, by this really effective way of approaching our tasks. And then, of course, there's things like protecting your time. So how do we block off times in our day for ourselves to be productive so that we allow that focus to happen? That's a really important aspect that can be very difficult to do, but it can be done. So it's a book at the time that I read. It felt like it was a good read. I felt inspired. I mentioned it to a couple colleagues, but then I forgot about it. Once I started gaining more people and responsibilities in my life, so I added teaching on top of counseling. So I started getting to know a new curriculum. I was beginning to work at nights, navigating a new system, being a part of a new institution. I began helping my mom with her social media and marketing at her boutique at the time. I got married, so that added my wonderful husband. But again, now I'm adding another person in my world. So when I wake up, it's not just myself, and that's a beautiful thing. But it was another layer that I needed to figure out how to incorporate into my day-to-day. And it was just different. It wasn't bad. It was just different. And so I stumbled upon this book again, more out of desperation of, okay, why am I not? I feel like I'm doing so much in a day, but I'm so exhausted. Have you ever felt like that, where you're working and you're feeling like, okay, I'm like actively doing 1,000 things. I'm crossing off things on my checklist. I'm running from store to store. I'm answering emails. I'm responding to my kids or my friends. I bought all the presents for the birthday party. I'm incorporating my vacation time. But like, why am I so incredibly exhausted? And it's this idea that multitasking and just reacting to our tasks as they come, it doesn't work. Multitasking does not work. There was a woman I worked with who prided herself in multitasking, and I have to admit I prided her too as well. I was really just enamored with her ability to handle all of these things. She could answer a phone call with a student right in front of her as she was finishing up responding to an email. And she was really good at it. I was in awe of her skills, and I thought, she can handle anything. Like she's been doing this for a long time. She's figured out this secret way to do it. And it was really impressive. But over the years, I watched her little by little just get completely burned out. When she was answering an email and a student would come interrupt her, and instead of protecting her time, and now this wasn't for a crisis or an emergency, mind you, that's a separate scenario. But she, instead of saying, hold on, let me finish up my email, she would talk to the student as she was finishing up the email. And I could sense just the annoyance a little bit, or just like the angst in her. And, it's exhausting. It's exhausting for us. And I really thought about this idea of functioning doesn't mean you're necessarily winning. That's important here. Functioning doesn't mean you're necessarily winning. You could be completely functioning, but doing a really good job at hiding how overwhelmed or tired you are. And just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. I'm going to read an article that I pulled from the Neurosciences Institute at Stanford University. So the article says, when we take on a task, several brain networks dealing with attention and cognitive control are involved. These are the frontoparietal control network, the dorsal attention network, and the ventral attention network. Attempts to multitask can create interference among these networks, and this can lead to slower processing as well as mistakes, explains Kevin Paul Medore, a neuroscientist at Stanford University. One way we can examine the effects of multitasking on behavior and the demands it places on relevant brain networks is by analyzing task switch costs, he says. A switch cost is a loss of accuracy or speed that comes when you shift between tasks. Though some of the costs of multitasking are subtle, they are by no means trivial. Too much multitasking can interfere with both working memory and long-term memory. Okay. Essentially, every time you switch a task, you're shifting mental gears, which creates less efficiency overall. Research has proven that multitasking is just taking up that energy. It's draining you, and it's not necessarily effective. And it goes back to that idea of the one thing in the book. It's that more focused time and attention so that we're preserving our energy and we're creating effective momentum on the tasks that we are doing. Now, there's a huge caveat, a big asterisk here, because I will say it's important to talk about the fact that multitasking is inevitable and in some cases necessary. We live in a world where we are connected more, we have more access to information, things are happening quicker. You may live in a home where you have a ton of humans around you, and you can't have the opportunity to just answer your emails or respond to text messages without someone asking you a question or interrupting you. So this is by no means a ploy to say, just put yourself in your room and block off what's happening outside. How do we implement systems into our lives that set us up for success rather than burnout? We'll first talk about systems. So how can we set up these simple systems in our lives that help us cut the noise and get really clear about the task at hand? Remember that the One Thing book, getting really focused on the small tasks and building momentum. In any given day, you can be completing a task that might be really big. You could be planning for something, you could be answering emails, and inevitably a distraction walks in. So in the school system, I had multiple things happening at once. I had a student that would walk in while I was answering emails. I had Canva up and I was working on a flyer for an upcoming program. And I had my day-to-day tasks that were constantly happening. But in the background of those daily tasks, like the student in front of me that needed an answer immediately, I had the back tasks running. So these were the things like I think of a computer that's loading in the background while you open another browser because you're tired of waiting for it to load. This is something like maybe you're planning a birthday party that's happening in a month out and you have to order catering and balloons and you have to create invitations and send them out. Or, in my case, I was planning a scholarship night. So while I had students that I needed to talk to and help with their immediate needs, I had a list of things that needed to get done before May. And if they didn't, the seniors would not receive their scholarships. It would just be a big disaster. Then as I'm planning programming, I would have my phone on my desk. And exactly if you're listening to this, you have your phone on, maybe you're driving, maybe you're out for a run, but then, you have a notification. So somebody pops up and now you're thinking, okay, I got to get back to that person. I was supposed to get back to them. So we've kind of added another thought process. So again, we're not going to be able to completely eliminate distractions and forever stop multitasking. But I think that there's power in setting up systems to where we can eliminate the distraction. These are very simple things. Rather than having multiple tabs open on my computer, I would create a new window for the task at hand. If you're working on your computer and you're paying a bill online, you have another tab open for your Gmail account answering emails. You have another tab open for the trip that you're planning, and then your phone goes off. These are all distractions. So even though the tabs, like I'm on the tab right now with my Google Drive with my talking points, but if I have the other tabs open, the tabs have titles, and those titles would say something like Disneyland, which is the trip that I'm planning with my family. Another tab would be Canva because I am creating an invitation for my son's birthday. Another tab would be UCLA because I'm teaching a curriculum and I have to be able to grade and make sure that my curriculum is all set up. So even though those tabs, the pages aren't physically in front of me to read, the titles of those tabs are subconsciously and very presently in my face. They're reminding me of things that I have to do, and my brain is starting to go into like high gear. So I eliminated this distraction best by creating an open window, closing out the tabs, and I would let my phone, I would turn it upside down, and if I could, put it on airplane mode if I was able to, or at least turn off, put it on silent mode and at least turn off your notifications if you know that you have that focused task. So you may not be able to turn your notifications off in an entire day, but if you have a block of time, like 1 hour that you need to focus on a project, answer emails, or whatever it is, you can certainly for 1 hour let everybody in your world know that you're busy, anyone that might really need to get a hold of you, and put your phone on airplane mode. So I am recording this podcast right now. If my husband walks up or if my phone starts ringing, well, one, I have my phone turned upside down. I told my husband that I was doing this. So while my son is napping, if he wakes up, he can handle that. These are systems that you kind of have to set up for yourself. And if an hour is too long, you can do it for a half an hour. But if a student walked in and right now, rather than trying to answer the student, I would ask them to wait while I finish my thought. I would finish my thought, save, and even write a note for like where I last was, and then close my email. Remember back to that article about every time we shift our task, where it's an actual cognitive shift that is happening, and that takes energy and brain power away. So what you're doing is kind of using that protecting your time, blocking off times in your day by that One Thing book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And you're also doing less things with more focus. So simply eliminating the tabs are really, really helpful. And this leads me to time blocking. Now, regardless of your home situation, your work situation, you can apply time blocking and whatever position you're in. When I was at school, in my Google Calendar, I would time block. I had 20 minutes for answering emails. I never scheduled a meeting during that time. Okay, let's be honest, it was about an hour and 20 minutes, but I would try to cram as much as I could. And in that time, I would only have my emails up. If my phone rang, my work phone, I would let it go to voicemail, knowing that if something was that dire, my principal would open my door and knock on, and they would keep calling and there would be an issue. But for that hour, I would block off emails. I knew from 9 to 10, I never took a student meeting, and I always had time to catch up on my emails. From 10 o'clock on, I would allow my day to happen. Now, you can use this if you work from home, letting everyone in your household know these are the set times where mom is not available. I would even write it. So we have a family calendar, and on the calendar, even though I'm home, I write from 3 to 4, I am working. And my husband knows it. Everyone in the household knows it. Because again, if you're home, it's a little bit tougher. And even in a school environment, even I'm physically there, but I'm not available. Time blocking helps when you set up things like your meditation and working out, and then your work out what your day looks like. It's important that you respect your time by setting up certain parts in your day where you are able to block off and tackle a big project or catch up on emails or catch up on text messages or whatever it is so that you can be more present. Because if I know that I have that hour to answer emails, when I'm waiting for the water to boil while I'm making our pasta dinner, I'm not going on my Gmail app anymore. Time blocking means making space in your day. So if your day is just jam-packed back to back, and sometimes this is what our life is going to be, there's times in our lives where we just have a lot going on. Even finding 10 to 15 minutes to time block and allow yourself some space to catch up or breathe or whatever, you have to make sure that you carve it out or else it's not going to happen. I would be driving to work and I would park in the lower part of the parking lot because I know that there's less people down there. I would park down there and sit in my car, and I would sit for about 10 minutes. It was right after I left the house and right before I walked into the office. I wasn't ready to see people yet, and I just needed a moment to myself. So I would get my coffee, I would park in the parking lot. And again, I parked in a parking lot where there were less people. And it's not because I didn't like my colleagues, but I implemented a system that made sense for me. Before I started my day, I wanted to be able to have a moment with myself where I could breathe, where I could scroll on Instagram, right, whatever. It was my time and space. And again, you can block this off. I would set a meeting where I would even go down to Starbucks. I would go down to Starbucks, I would bring my journal, and that was my creative time. What are your commitments and what are your needs? If you're planning big projects, do you need to time block to be able to plan? If you have a lot of just catch up random stuff to do, like making dentist appointments and answering emails and paying bills, can you make this is your catch up hour where for 1 hour it's dedicated to kind of life tying up? Do I have to make a grocery list? Do I need to order something on Amazon? Do I need to make invitations? Whatever it is. Time block for your mundane tasks, time block for allowing yourself to mindlessly scroll on social media and not feel bad about it, and time block for your health. So even if that is 10 minutes in your car breathing, or where you actually sign up for a class and go take a class and do a workout, time blocking helps. A note-taking system can be really helpful. I used Google Keep at one point. So this is in the Google suite, and it's essentially just sticky notes that stick to your computer, and you can create notes for different things, and it just keeps it all in Google Keep. So it's like sticky notes just online. And what I liked about that is I could color code. I had a sticky note for my personal, a sticky note for my professional life, and then a sticky note for miscellaneous. The miscellaneous could be anything from paying my car registration, or I wanted to sign up for cooking classes, just kind of random things I wanted to not forget. The personal sticky notes were great because these would be any intentions, things that I wanted to do if I had a friend's birthday party coming up. And then the professional, of course, the priorities and tasks that you want to get done at your work. I also just love a good old-fashioned notepad and journal open so that I could jot down anything that I was worried about forgetting. So again, if I was answering emails or if I'm sitting at home and I'm working and going about my day, I just have an open journal page. And this is essentially like a brain dump. If I needed to make sure that we got milk, if I needed to pay a bill, if I needed to call my dad back, if I needed to order something on Amazon, I just jotted it down on that one-page journal. It was a way for me to uncloud my brain and just put all the things that might pop up down on a page, and then I could cross it off or start a fresh page the next day. I make a lot of lists, I rewrite them, and I cross them out. And the lists I don't call to-do lists. I started making the shift, and it really helped my brain. My lists are called success lists or priority lists or tasks. I don't like to do because it just feels heavy. The priority list for me is helpful because I can take a look at what's immediately happening in my life that I need to prioritize and then list it through there. It's a priority list because if I don't get it done that day, I can get it done tomorrow, but it is on my priority. It's on my radar. And then again, rewriting the list is just helpful. Brain dumping is kind of an offshoot of note taking. And I titled the top of my page brain dump, and I just would dump everything. So the list wouldn't really make sense. It was never organized, but I would just dump. It would sometimes even have like an anxiety or a fear, but then it would have like, make sure you call to get your car serviced. When you brain dump, you get it all out and it can be really cathartic, but then you can review it and search for the highest priority. What is within my means right now? What can I focus my time and attention on today to build momentum to completing the task at hand for tomorrow? Now, I want to humbly talk about something that will just round all of this out for you. This is called the art of letting go. This is where the humility comes into play. Admittedly, I am a control freak. I had no idea I was until I got married. That's no dig on my husband. But the people that worked for me in the professional setting probably wouldn't have felt that they could candidly say to me what my husband can't. And it wasn't until my son was born that I realized that my need to do everything because I felt that it needed to be done a certain way, that I realized how much that I was just high functioning taking on myself because I didn't want to let go. And the hardest part about that is that you just get exhausted. It's that high functioning, I can do it all attitude, and it works for a little bit, and then you just completely burn out. I came home one day and my husband and our son was napping in his crib, and the way that he put him down was completely different. His nighttime routine of how he would have put him down was completely backwards of what I would have done. And his outfit wasn't what I had picked out for him, but guess what? He was sleeping. He was sleeping. He was happy. And there's no reason for me to feel like I can do it all by myself. In my last year at my school district, I learned to really start to delegate. I had a new administrative assistant who had very little experience in the college counseling office, but she had a ton of experience in other avenues, and she was younger. So at first I felt like I couldn't let go. I had built this program that I was in charge of. My name was on it. All of the responsibilities and the liability was on me. So how could I let any tasks go? But again, this is where I was humbled. What was incredible was the more pregnant I got and the less capable of functioning brain-wise, I would need to delegate. And she brought new, beautiful ideas, and she connected with students in a way that I never could. She put her spin on conversations, on programs, and it worked. I have learned, this is really big here. Most things will function without you. I'm going to say that one more time. Most things will function without you. I'd really love to have a bigger ego here, and it still really pains me, but it's just the truth. Most of us think if we don't do everything, all will crumble. And yes, there are some tasks that's the absolute case, but most of the time, somebody can help you. And if they offer and you allow, it's beautiful what can happen. When you let go and delegate, you afford someone else the opportunity to step up and do something and shine their light, but you also afford yourself some time. If you are a perfectionist, if you are a control freak, if you have a hard time letting go, see if there's areas in your life where you can really use some help and just test it and see what happens. When you start to accept help and you start to let go, you're not letting go your power. You're giving back. You're giving someone else an opportunity. You're entrusting someone, so you're building trusting relationships. When I see my husband put my son to bed, it is just the most beautiful thing because they have a special bond that is very different from myself. When I saw my assistant create a program and have 5 students that connected with her throughout the year because she was young and a first-generation college student and they were first-generation college students, that was something that I couldn't curate on my own. And when I let go of my power in that moment, And when I let go of my controlling and my need to be on top of everything, I allowed these beautiful organic moments to happen without me. And guess what? It was fine. And I was fine. And my ego wasn't bruised. So I'm challenging you to see what areas in your life can you delegate? What can you let go of so that you allow more time and space in your day? My second challenge is, again, going back to that art of making space in your day, that's that time blocking. So where can you time block in your day? When you look from start to finish, what are the spaces where you can carve out and really just allow some extra time for yourself? Now, I used to do this in the morning and be a really big morning person. I would get up, I would journal, stretch, and start my day. But now that I live in a home where I work from home and I live with my 2 dogs, we have 2 sheep, I have my son and my husband. I wake up, I need to be mom. I need to help make sure that the household is functioning. We need to let our sheep out. We need to make sure our dogs can be out and fed. I need to make sure that my son is changed. So having that morning time just isn't really there for me until at least an hour to 2 hours in. And that is something that I figured out. I shifted my morning time. I just shifted it a couple hours and I still held true to the stretching, to the journaling, to the quiet time for myself, but it's just a couple hours later. So where in your day can you make space? Is that driving to work 10 minutes early and sitting in your car? Is it allowing yourself to take a lunch break and set a meeting after so you can cushion your time? Is it setting going to the yoga studio instead of doing yoga at home so that you know you won't be interrupted? Where can you make space in your day? Give yourself the power by implementing a system that makes sense for you. So whether that's note taking, whether that's time blocking, and how can you eliminate distraction? Eliminating those tabs on your computer, eliminating the notifications. How can you tell your family and your coworkers that you have that hour, half hour of time that is sacred for you to do whatever you need to do, and so that they know that's your time and they can respect it? And again, don't be too hard on yourself. There's going to be days where life just happens and you have a crisis and you need to respond to, and there's going to be days that just click better than others. Keep in mind you might need to try a couple new things before it works. I tried the journal bullet system thing. It didn't really work for me. The brain dumping was something that worked. I tried a planner where I wrote out, the extra little sides where they have notes and tasks for the week, and it didn't work for me. So I have a separate calendar so I know my overarching day and month, and then I have a separate journal for my brain dumping and my lists. So what is a system that you have implemented that you notice works really well? What are areas where you feel completely burned out, and how can we talk about it? Send your emails in to themindfulmalibumorning@gmail.com. That's themindfulmalibumorning@gmail.com. And with that, I wish you a beautiful day full of unstoppable momentum that always starts with you. Hi, guys. Please follow, like, and subscribe The Mindful Malibu Morning and leave a review to help continue the content. And you can also follow on Instagram at The Mindful Malibu Morning.